Yes. Hello everyone. How are you? I hope you all are doing very amazing. So people, the good news is that we are already done with 3 chapters under FEMA. Number 1 is people salient features of FEMA. Number 2 is liberalized remittance scheme. And number 3 is FDI. And today we're going to complete off thoroughly with the chapter of ECB. That chapter which students often find it very frustrating because a lot of technical terms have been used and students either end up mugging up the chapter or they skip the chapter, which will in the end they will lose marks. So people, this is my guarantee, this is my promise that after watching this lecture of 1 to 1.5 hours, you are going to fall in love with the chapter of external commercial borrowing. This is my promise. Okay people, chalo. So without wasting any time, let's get started with the chapter of ECB. Before that, first let's understand what is the meaning of ECB. So people, what is the meaning of ECB? ECB are the loans taken by Indian companies from foreign lenders. ECBs are loans taken by Indian companies from foreign lenders. Okay. Now people, let's understand what are topics we're going to understand in the chapter. So people, how many topics are there? 9 to 10 topics. Very easy. We're going to understand every single topic using logic and quickly we will revise. Okay. Chalo. The first topic is people key parameters of ECB. Over here, we're going to understand the meaning of minimum average maturity period. We're going to understand the meaning of all-in cost ceiling and the end uses. Okay. Number 2 is people ECB in CIRP. If a company is going through corporate insolvency resolution process, how it should comply with the laws whenever it is taking ECBs, we're going to understand. Number 3 people, if you're taking ECBs, in which sectors, in which areas you cannot use those ECBs, we're going to understand. Okay. Number 4 is people, what is the maximum amount of ECB you can take, we'll understand. Then people, parking of ECB proceeds. If you have taken ECBs in US dollars, if you want to spend it in US dollar itself, so how are you going to supposed to park the ECB in US? If you want to spend those ECBs Indian rupees, how are you going to park those ECB in India? We will understand. Okay. Then people, refinancing of existing ECBs. You are taking new ECBs to pay off old ECBs. Sir, why are we taking new ECBs to pay off old ECBs? Why can't we simply pay off the old ECBs? We'll understand this. Then people, conversion of ECB into equity. What are the rules we have to follow? Then people, what is the meaning of trade credit? We will understand. And then additional few topics. And then we are done with the chapter of ECB. Very easy people. 9 to 10 topics. If you stay with me throughout the lecture, I promise you will fall in love with the chapter of ECB. Yes, people, now that we have understood the meaning of ECB, let's understand why would a company raise ECB? Why can't they simply take rupee denominated loan? So people, 3 reasons. Number 1 is India requires cheaper capital. Oftentimes people, foreign lenders charge lower interest rate compared to Indian banks. Yes or no? And number 2 is companies want to avoid immediate equity dilution. And number 3 is people, foreign lenders, by giving loans to Indian companies, they can have access to Indian market. This is the reason why people, Indian companies take ECBs. Okay. Now the important question is, who can take ECBs and who can give ECBs? Let's understand. Number 1 is people, eligible borrowers. Definitely in your exam people, question can be asked. Who are the eligible borrowers under ECB? Okay. So number 1 is people, manufacturing companies like Bharat Forge. Number 2 is infrastructure companies like GMR Airports. I've also given you examples so you don't end up mugging up the concepts. Number 3 is people, NBFCs like Tata Capital. Number 4 is SEZ units can borrow. Then port, shipping, airline companies like Adani Ports or Indigo Airlines. Next people, hospitals, logistics, hotels, IT consulting firms can also take ECBs. Like example is Apollo Hospitals. And last people, eligible startups can also take ECBs, but maximum is $3 million US. Okay. Now people, let's understand who can be the eligible lenders. Number 1 is people, international banks like HSBC, Hong Kong. Number 2 is Export Credit Agency, like ECA of Japan, who finance machinery. Okay. Now next people, sovereign wealth funds, pension funds. Basically, sovereign means government. Example is people, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. Next is people, multilateral agency, foreign equity holders, like SoftBank in Japan is the shareholder of OYO. So SoftBank being the shareholder of OYO, they can also lend money. Then people, overseas branches, subsidiaries of Indian corporates like TCS of UK, they can also lend ECBs. But who cannot lend ECB people? Overseas branches of Indian banks, they cannot lend ECB people, because in the end money is going from India, right? Then how can we call it as ECB? Yes or no people? So we have understood the meaning of eligible borrowers, we have understood the meaning of eligible lenders, we understood the meaning of ECB, and then also we understood the meaning why would any company raise ECB. Okay, very easy till now. So people, these topics can be asked for 7 marks in your exam. So learn it, okay? I've also given you examples so you don't end up mugging up the concepts. Cool people, that's it. Now, what are the types of ECBs? So there are 3 tracks of ECB. Track 1 is for medium term foreign currency loan. Track 2 is for long term foreign currency loan. And track 3 is people, rupee denominated loan, which means what? Foreign lenders are giving loans in Indian rupees. The benefit is there is no currency risk involved. Yes or no people? Let's understand this. Now, track 1 means, what is the meaning of track 1? Currency is in dollars, euros, yen, etc. Okay, this is very, very important. Minimum time for normal companies is 3 years. For infrastructure and NBFC infrastructure, it is 5 years. Now, who can give loans? Foreign banks, ECA, foreign shareholders, and big international institutions can give loans. Okay. Now, what can this money be used for? Buying machinery, setting up plants, expansion, modernization, or importing equipment. Very easy. Example is simple example. A telecom company borrows US dollars 250 million from a Japanese bank for 5 years to upgrade its network, and that will come under track 1. Yes or no people? Medium term loan, track 1, 3 years, 5 years. Very easy. Okay. So basically people, these are loans for business expansions or imports. Remember this people. Now next is people, long term currency loan. So the minimum time is over here 10 years. Over there it was 3 years, 5 years. Purpose is very large long-term projects like ports, highways, refineries, anything that takes years to complete. Because the loan period is long, the pressure to repay every year is very, very low. So example is, a port company takes US dollars $600 million to build a new terminal, that will come under track 2. So easy way to remember is people, big projects, long-term foreign currency loan, that will come under which track? Track number 2. Very easy. Now next is track number 3, that is rupee denominated ECB. Over here we were receiving ECBs in foreign currency, but over here we are receiving ECB in Indian rupees. Now people, who can lend? Any foreign person or foreign company except those banned by RBI, they can lend. Minimum average maturity period is minimum, it should be for how much tenure? 3 years tenure loan. Now why is it safer? The loan is in rupees, so the Indian company does not face currency risk. No tension if the dollar value goes up. So people, if the dollar value goes up, we end up paying more rupees. Yes or no? Now the important question is, if they are paying us ECB in Indian rupees, then people, there's no currency rate exchange involved, because there's only one currency. Hence, it is very, very safer. Yes or no people? Now use is general corporate requirements, expansion, investment, same as normal loans. Example is, a Singapore investor lends 500 crores to an Indian hospital chain for 3 years. That will come under track 3. Easy way to remember is, loan from a foreigner but in Indian rupees is called as track 3. The reason is there is no currency risk involved. Okay. But in track 1 and track 2, there is currency risk involved. Yes or no people? That's it. Now, let's come to the topic. Now, what are the key parameters of ECB? We will understand. Number 1, 2, 3. What is the meaning of minimum average maturity period, people? ECB must be taken for a minimum period of 5 years to ensure long-term usage. Example is, I will give you. To build factories, purchasing machinery, to refinance old loans, will understand this, people. Okay. Now the reason why, people, this minimum average maturity period concept is used is because the moment if you are taking short-term loans, the moment currency rate fluctuates, you end up paying more rupees, draining the Indian currency reserves, which happened in Thailand and Indonesia in 1997. So they took a lot of foreign loans for short-term purposes. Meanwhile, currency value went down, so they end up paying a lot of their native currency in to repay the loans. So that should not happen. That is the reason why, people, this minimum average maturity period is used. Yes or no, people? So ECB must be taken for a minimum average maturity period. It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, it could be longer also, to ensure that loans is taken for a long-term usage and not for short-term usage. Okay. Now, what are the permitted and non-permitted uses? Let's understand. ECB's fund can be used for purposes like capital projects or refinancing loans. Example is, over here example will come. If you are building factories, if you are purchasing machinery, or you are taking new ECBs to pay off old ECBs, that's completely fine. Now, people, ECB cannot be used for stock market trading or buying real estate assets because the government does not want to use ECBs for speculative activities, speculative, short-term gambling and all. It should not be. It should be used for valuable purposes, for a long-term purposes. Yes or no, people? Okay. Now, next is, if you are using ECBs for stock market investment, or you want to purchase real estate, or for gambling purpose, it is very, very risky. So ECB is not allowed to use in those areas. Okay. Now, people, what is the meaning of maximum all-in cost ceiling? The total cost means what, people? Whenever you raise ECB, you pay a lot of processing cost, interest charges, and a lot of other expenses. So maximum, how much expenditure can you incur is what we call it as maximum all-in cost ceiling. Okay. The total cost of raising ECB must stay within the RBI limit, and that is what we call it as maximum all-in cost ceiling. Yes or no, people? Now that, people, you have understood the meaning of all-in cost ceiling, let me give you a small short example as to how it actually works in practical life. So, people, let's say the base rate is 1.5% is the base rate. Sir, what is the meaning of base rate? People, base rate is the cost of money in the global market, which means what? Minimum, this is the interest prevailing in the global market. Beyond that, no bank will ever give you loan. Yes or no? Now, apart from that, people, RBI gives you additional allowance that, let's say, 4.5%, 1.5% plus 4.5%. Beyond 6%, you cannot incur expenses in raising ECB. So why 4.5%, people? Because it is the bank's margin. Interest rate basis 1.5%, but apart from that, it is a bank's margin. Yes or no? Why would any bank give you ECB at free of cost? Yes or no? So let's say the total maximum all-in cost ceiling allowed is 6% while you raise ECB. Now, people, look at this example. If you are taking ECB where interest rate is 4.5% and the processing fees is 0.5% and the base rate is 1.5%, how much have you incurred total? 6.5%. But actually, how much it is allowed? It is 6%. So you cannot take ECBs, and that is the meaning of all-in cost ceiling. Yes or no, people? So there is different RBI allowances for different ECBs. I will give you example. So, people, this is the example. Where is it? Where is it? Yes. Look at over here, people. So if it is ECB in foreign currency, benchmark rate, that is the base rate plus 450 BPS, 4.5%. If it is rupee denominated ECB, it is base rate plus 450 BPS. If you are taking trade credit, we will understand meaning of trade credit. If you are taking trade credit, that is benchmark plus 300 BPS for new trade credits. So these are the maximum all-in cost ceiling for different ECBs. Just learn the people in your exam. High possibility that this question will be coming in your exam for 7 marks. Okay, very easy. So people, we are understanding every single concept, no matter how technical it is. I'm explaining in a way that even a 10-year-old would understand. Okay, in case if you have got any doubt with respect to any topic while you are watching this lecture, please make sure that you are dropping all your doubts in the YouTube comment section. Don't leave any doubt unresolved. Yes or no, people? After that, after the CMA final, you're not going to study these concepts at all. So I want every single one of my student should have a tremendous amount of knowledge by the time he becomes a cost accountant. Okay, people? Chalo. So we are done with the people minimum average maturity period. We are done with permitted, non-permitted end users. We are done with maximum all-in cost ceiling. Now people, let's understand. Now all the topics are very easy. Now, if you are into corporate insolvency resolution process, if you are taking ECB, what are the rules you have to follow? Let's understand. So people, companies going through CIRP can raise ECB to repay their existing rupee loans. If a company is not able to pay the rupee loans, they can take ECB to pay off the old rupee loans. Okay. Now, who can borrow? Resolution applicants who are trying to revive the company, they can borrow. You know the meaning of resolution applicants, people. We have learned this in liquidation and CIRP chapter in. Yes or no, people? Now, who cannot lend? Foreign branches or subsidiaries of Indian banks. The logic is, if the money is going in the end from India only, no matter if it is foreign subsidiary or not, then it is not allowed. How can we call it as ECB? Yes or no, people? So a State Bank of India of London branch, they cannot give ECB for companies to revive in CIRP. Yes or no? Now special rule is that it will require government approval, so that whatever ECB you are raising, it should be used in a proper, systematic, in a safe manner. Yes or no? Very easy. So 3 points we understood. Who can borrow, who cannot lend, and the special rule that you have to follow. You have to take the government approval when you take ECB to revive the company that is going through CIRP. Very easy, people. That's it. Now, end uses, negative list. What is the meaning of this, people? If you are taking ECBs, you cannot use those ECB for certain purposes. Let's understand this. Okay. How many end users are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 negative items. Let's understand every single thing in detail. So people, if you are buying or selling real estate using ECBs, that is not allowed. But it is allowed in exception for affordable housing and construction. The reason is, same logic, people, with that we understood in FDI. If you are using the foreign money, if you are using money to develop the economy, then that is allowed. So people, India requires growth in the housing for low middle class families. So for that purpose, ECB can be used. Okay. Number 2, investing into capital markets. The reason is to stop speculation. This rule has been made. You cannot use ECBs to buy shares, bonds, or debenture. The reason is it is speculative activity. Yes or no, people? Next is equity investment. You cannot use ECB to buy shares of another company. Otherwise, what you will do is you can easily acquire another company, and in the end, this money belongs to whom? Does this belong to India? No, it belongs to foreigners. In the end, you will end up giving the control of Indian companies to foreigners. Hence, it is not allowed. Then people, for working capital, for general corporate purposes, you cannot use ECB. Why? The reason is, people, if you are not able to run the company based on your own funds, you are using ECBs to run the company. Do you think you are managing company very well? No, you are not managing the company very well. That means, yes or no? If you are using ECBs for day-to-day business expenses, it is not allowed. Yes or no? General corporate purposes means what, people? Broad business purpose. It is not allowed. You can use ECB only for growing your business, not to run your business. Yes or no? But there is an exception to that. If the lender if the one who is giving ECB is a foreign equity holder. Example is Oyo's shareholder is SoftBank. If SoftBank is giving ECB for working capital purpose, that is completely allowed. Plus minimum average maturity period is 5 years. There is no risk. It is for long term. That's completely fine. Yes or no, people? Now next is general corporate purposes. So people, over here I have given you an exception allowed in some special cases. Now what are those special cases? People, NBFCs can give loans to MSME, infrastructure, affordable housing. Why? Because these are sectors where India requires growth. For that purpose, if you're getting ECB, that is completely fine. Now people, repaying rupee loans, it is prohibited. If you're paying old Indian loans, it is completely prohibited, but it is allowed during CRP and only when the company is in manufacturing company. For that purposes, if you're taking ECB to pay off old rupee loans, that is completely fine. The reason is, people, reason is manufacturing industry is a very, very stable industry. Hence, there is no risk involved in manufacturing industry. That is the reason why, people, in CRP, and if a company is engaged in manufacturing, you can take new ECBs to pay off old rupee loans. Yes or no? Okay. People, the reason is, if you allow companies to take ECB to pay off old rupee loans, what will happen is, we'll buy cheap ECB to pay off old rupee loans, and the moment rupees value goes down, you end up paying more in Indian rupees. Yes or no, people? That is very, very bad for the economy. Okay. Now next is on lending to restricted sectors. So people, NBFCs can't use ECBs to lend for banned activities. NBFCs can take ECB, but they cannot take ECBs for the purposes which are banned activities. Yes or no? Very, very easy, people. So prohibited purposes: real estate, investing into capital markets, equity investment, working capital, general corporate purposes, repaying rupee loans, on lending to restricted sectors, it is completely prohibited. I've also given you exceptions. I've also told you the logic behind why the exception is made. If you're taking ECBs to develop the economy, if you're using that money, if you're using those money for save long-term activities, that is allowed. But if you're using those money for speculative, risky activities, that is going to be completely prohibited. Yes or no, people? That's it. Chalo. Now next is, people, limit and leverage of ECB. Maximum, how much ECB can you take? Let's understand this, people. A company can raise up to $750 million per year without RBI approval under automatic route. Remember, people, in FDI we understood the meaning of automatic government approval. Yes or no? So maximum, how much ECB can you take without RBI's approval? It is $750 million per year. Now, if the company is borrowing foreign currency from its foreign shareholder, then what is the rule you have to comply? Example is, Oyo is taking ECB from SoftBank because SoftBank is the shareholder of Oyo. What are the rules Oyo has to comply with? The loan to equity ratio should not be more than 7:1. The reason behind this rule is the company don't end up taking a lot of ECB beyond their capacity, is why this rule has been made. I'll give you an example. Example is, people, let's say ABC Private Limited, equity from a foreign shareholder is $10 million. So that means what? That foreign investor has invested $10 million in that private company. Now the private company wants to borrow from the same foreign shareholder. Maximum, how much can the Indian company borrow? 10 into 7, maximum it is $70 million. They can borrow maximum, not more than that. Understood, people? Very easy. The reason is to stop over borrowing. The moment rupee crashes, that's it. That company will not be able to pay off the debt. In the end, India will lose its economy. Yes or no? Now, exception. This rule will not be applicable in which scenarios? If total ECBs, including new borrowing, total ECB, total overall, is US dollars $5 million or less, which is a very, very small amount, then this rule will not be applicable. So that it helps small companies borrow small amounts easily. This is the reason why this exception has been made. Simple rule. 7:1 you have to follow. If the foreign shareholder has invested $1 million, you cannot take ECBs for more than $70 million. The exception is if the ECB amount is overall, including all the old ECB, it is $5 million. That is completely fine. The reason is to help the small companies to raise ECB very easily. Now, company must also follow any debt equity rules that their sector regulator specifies. Examples, people, let's say SEBI, IRDAI. If these regulators are specifying a different debt is to equity ratio, they have to follow that also. Yes or no, people? Perfect. So we're done with limit and leverage of ECB. Now, parking of ECB, beautiful concept. Which means what, people? If you're taking ECBs, if you're borrowing ECBs, let's say, I will give you an example. If you are borrowing ECB for importing a machinery to pay to the foreign consultants, to pay to the overseas supplier, let's see what will happen. So, people, let's say you are borrowing ECB. Now the problem is you want to spend in foreign currency. You don't want to bring those money in India. You have to spend it in foreign country only. This is situation number 1. And situation number 2 is you are taking ECB to pay off in Indian rupees. What are the rules you have to follow while you keep the ECB, while you park those ECB? How are you going to safely park those ECBs? We're going to understand this topic. Okay. If the ECB money is to be spent in foreign currency, like paying for imports, it has to be kept abroad only. The reason is, if you are taking ECB to pay off foreign currency expenses, why do you want to bring in India? Why do you want to convert into Indian rupees and then again you want to convert into foreign dollars? Does that make sense, people? No. To avoid this long process, this rule has been made. So it can be kept abroad. It can be invested into safe liquid assets like short-term deposits or government bonds until required. Yes or no, people? Now, why this rule has been made? To save currency conversion cost, to avoid currency risk. The moment that money is converted into Indian rupees, again it is converted back to foreign dollars. There is a risk involved, people, currency risk. Dollar may go up, rupee may go down. Anything can happen. Number 3 is to make international payments easier. Why do you want to go through a long road when the short road is already available? Yes or no, people? So number 1, if you're parking abroad, it can be kept abroad. It can be invested into safe liquid assets. Okay. Now, if you are parking money in India to pay off in Indian rupees expenses, if the ECB is to be spent in India, it must be brought into India immediately to avoid misuse of funds. If you are using that money for trading, stock market, for investment, it is not allowed. Yes. So it must be brought to India immediately. It should be credited to the borrower's rupee account with the AD category 1 bank. Why AD category 1 bank? Because AD category 1 bank is very, very disciplined, is properly supervised, properly regulated to avoid misuse of funds. Number 3 is it can be parked in a term deposit with that bank, but only up to 12 months. The moment you are bringing money in India, if you plan to use it after 12 months, it is not allowed. The moment you bring that money in India, you have to use those money within 12 months. Otherwise, what would happen is, if I keep the money for a long period of time, I would earn interest from that money. Yes or no? You have to immediately use that money. Okay, people? So that timely project evaluation is done, execution is done, avoid currency risk. People, let's say, if the money is kept for a long period of time and there is some currency risk involved, let's say dollar value goes up, rupee value goes down, or vice versa will happen, it is going to hurt the economy. Hence, wherever foreign loans are involved, it should be spent immediately to avoid currency risk involved, to stop events from happening exactly like Thailand and Indonesia. Yes or no, people? Very easy. So, again, I will tell you. If you are parking money in abroad, it is completely allowed. You have to invest into safe liquid assets. Okay. Now, if you are bringing money in India, you have to make sure that it is brought to India immediately. It is parked in a term deposit and it should be used within 12 months. And third is, people, it should be kept in an AD category 1 bank only. Yes or no? Perfect. Now, refinancing of existing ECBs. So you are taking new ECBs to pay off old ECBs. Sir, why can't we simply pay off old ECBs? Why are we taking another ECBs to pay off old ECBs? The logic is very, very simple. People, let's say the old ECB, that loan is charging me 11% interest rate. Okay, 1 year has been over. Now I know that after 1 year, the same amount of loan I am getting for 8%. So what I will do is, I will take this loan at 8% to pay off the 11% loan, and then I am only liable to pay this 8% loan. Don't you think I'm saving 3% interest rate? That is completely allowed. So refinancing is taking a new ECB to pay off an old ECB, usually to get better terms like lower interest rate or more time to repay. So I have to repay that loan within 5 years, but I'm getting the same loan at the same interest rate, but I'm getting repayment time for 10 years. I can take this loan to pay off that loan. Very easy. After that, I'm only supposed to pay this loan. Very, very easy, people. Okay. We are understanding every single rule, people, using logic. Okay. The reason is, if you understand every single rule using logic, you will never forget the laws. Okay, people? Chalo. Now, what is the condition for ECB? How many conditions there? 1, 2, 3 conditions are there. So, people, maturity of the new ECB must not be shorter than the old ECB. Yes or no, people? This is obvious. The new ECB is only taken for the purpose of relief and not for the purpose of more pressure. Yes or no? Old ECB, 5 years timeline. New ECB, 10 years timeline. If new ECB is offering me 3 years repayment time, why would I even go for new ECB? Yes or no? So, you cannot take a new loan that demands faster repayment than your old loan. You can keep the same maturity or extend it. Okay. Old ECB is 5 years loan. New ECB, it cannot be 4 years. It can be 5 years. It can be 7 years. It is completely allowed. Okay. Now, number 2, new ECB must have lower all-in cost. Obviously, people, the amount of expenditure I'm going to incur in the new ECB, it should be lower than the old ECB. Yes or no? The total cost of the new loan must be less than the old loan. Okay. Now, Indian banks can help only for highly rated corporates and Maharatna PSUs. So, people, if you want a bank guarantee to take ECBs, only highly Indian corporates, highly rated corporates and Maharatna, Navaratna PSUs can only get bank guarantee. These are powerful, stable, long-term companies. Yes or no, people? Okay. Now, what is the meaning of highly rated companies? Highly rated companies and top-level government PSUs can get help from Indian banks for refinancing because there is very, 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 very less risk involved. And number 2 is ordinary companies will never get any help from Indian banks. Remember this, people. So we understood 3 points. Number 1 is maturity of new ECB must not be shorter than the old ECB. Number 2, new ECB must have a lower all-in cost ceiling. And number 3 is Indian banks can only help for highly rated corporates and Maharatna, Navaratna PSUs because risk is very, very low. Yes or no, people? Perfect. Now, conversion of ECB into equity. Now, people, you are not repaying the ECB. Instead, you are converting that ECB into equity shares to the foreign shareholders. Let's understand, people. So, instead of paying your foreign loan in cash, you give shares to the lender. Is what we call it as conversion of ECB into equity. Now rules you must be following. FDI eligibility. Your company must be doing a business where FDI is allowed automatically. You cannot be a company where you are dealing in defense or media. In FDI, people, we have understood you should have proper government approval for foreign investment if it requires government approval. Yes or no? Number 2, lender's consent and no extra cost. So people, lender must give his consent that yes, I agree to convert my loan into equity shares. Number 2, there should not be any extra fees on the lender. It must also respect the sectoral caps and conditions under FDI policy that we have understood in the last chapter. The reason is, people, the reason is to avoid unnecessary disputes. That is going to take a lot of time to settle the disputes. These rules have been made where lender must give his consent. Unnecessary extra cost should not be put on the lender. Very easy. Now, you have to follow the pricing guidelines, people. You cannot issue shares at a very, very cheap price. Yes or no, people? Shares must be issued at a fair price as per FDI laws. No cheap shares or shady deals. No. Unnecessary, it will cause disputes. It's going to take a lot of court time. Yes or no, people? Now, reporting to RBI. So whenever a conversion happens, you have to report it to RBI. Remember, people, FCGPR form. So you have to file FCGPR form for FDI reporting plus ECB2 with a note if it is partially convertible ECB. So people, if it is $10 million ECB and only $5 million you are converting into equity shares, you have to call it as partially converted ECB. Okay. So if it is partial conversion, you have to file FCGPR form plus you have to file which form? ECB2 with a note that it is partially converted. Okay. Now if it is fully converted, people, you have to file FCGPR plus ECB2 mentioning that you have fully converted ECB into equity shares. After that, there is no more reporting required. If it is phased conversion, you have to file FCGPR and ECB2 after every single phase. Okay. You have to follow prudential guidelines. Now, what is the meaning of this, people? If you have loans from Indian banks too, you also have to follow the Indian banks rules that they have told you while they were giving you the loan. Example is, Indian banks might have given you loan on a condition that you cannot change the debt equity ratio without our permission. You cannot change the capital structure without our permission. You cannot reduce the debt into equity without our permission. If Indian banks had given old loans by giving these conditions, after that you have taken new ECB loans and then you are converting ECB loans into equity, you have to follow those Indian banks rules also. Yes or no, people? Next is consent from the other lenders. If other lenders have also given you a loan on a condition that you cannot convert any loan into equity without our permission, you have to follow those rules also. Exchange rate for conversion. What will be the exchange rate for conversion, people? Rate on conversion date, or conversion date means what, people? Rate on conversion date means loan into equity. The date on which you are converting that rate, or if lower agreeable date will be used to prevent manipulation of forex rates. Simple, people. You should not convert the loan into equity. That is going to hurt the foreign reserves of India. Yes or no? Fair value of shares should be done. Okay. So people, how many rules are there? Conversion of ECB into equity. Number 1, you have to follow the FDI eligibility. You should be in a company where it is automatically allowed. FDI is automatically allowed. If the company in which you are in, if it requires government approval, you have to take the government approval also. Number 1. Number 2, you also have to take the lender's consent and you have to make sure that you are not imposing unnecessary extra cost on the lender. Number 3, you have to follow the pricing guidelines. You don't have to convert those loans into very, very cheap equity shares just to escape from the repaying liability. Number 4, you have to report to RBI by filing which two forms? FCGPR and ECB2. And then people, you have to follow the other bank rules also. You have to follow the rules imposed by other lenders also. And next, people, you have to also follow the exchange rate for conversion. Very, very easy, people. Okay. So we are done with this topic also. Now, let's come to trade credits framework. Now, people, what is the meaning of trade credit? Let's understand. Trade credits are loans or credit given by foreign suppliers, banks, or financial institutions to Indian importers to help them buy goods from abroad. That means what? If a supplier is giving you extra time to repay the expenses so that you can have a very, very easy cash flow, it is called as a trade credit. Okay. Now, on the trade, TC can be given for capital goods. TC can also be given for non-capital goods. Okay. People, foreign seller or foreign bank gives you time to pay for imports, so your cash flows are easily managed. This is what we call it as trade credit. Okay. Now, next, types of TC: suppliers credit and buyers credit. Now, what is the meaning of suppliers credit? Where suppliers gives you time, foreign supplier gives you time to the buyer to pay later. And number two is buyer's credit, when the buyer borrows from a bank or lender to pay the overseas supplier. In SC, suppliers gives you time. In BC, banks of the borrower gives them time. Very easy, people. Now, maturity period, it could be short term, it could be medium term. Very, very important. This will definitely come in your exam. People, trade credit will definitely come in your exam. Please remember this. Okay. Now, short term is used for non-capital goods. The repayment is between 180 days to 1 year. If it is for medium term, for capital goods, repayment is up to 5 years. Okay. Example is a textile company imports cotton, it is short term. An Indian factory imports machinery, it is long term. Okay. Now, recognized lender. Who are the recognized lender, people? Foreign banks, overseas financial institutions are all, we call it as recognized lender, which we already understood in the beginning of the revision. Yes or no, people? Okay. Now, why is TC important? So they can get more time where they can easily manage their cash flow. Very easy. Now, trade credit in SEZ, FTWZ, DTA. Very, very beautiful, very, very easy concept. Don't just go by topic name, because people, in the end, the underlying concept is very, very easy. Okay, trust me. Now, what are SEZ, FTWZ, and DTA? Let's understand. SEZ is, people, a special economic zone. Okay, an area, if we call it as SEZ, any company operating in that area will get a lot of tax benefits, and they have to follow very, very less import-export compliance rules. Okay. So SEZ is an area with special rules to encourage exports and foreign investment. Businesses here get tax benefits. Example is, people, SEZ in Surat is for diamonds. SEZ in Chennai is for IT. Okay. Taxes are low. Import-export becomes very, very easier. Now we know the meaning of SEZ. Now, what is the meaning of FTWZ? Same concept, but it is only for warehousing. So, similar to SEZ, but focus on warehousing and logistics, allowing duty-free re-export of goods. So, people, if you are re-exporting goods, your duty will be very, very less if you are using warehousing in FTW zones. Yes or no? Now, DTA means what, people? Very, very simple. The rest of the country where regular taxes like GST, customs will apply. That is what we call it as DTA. Okay. Now, people, let's understand TC in SEZ and FTWZ. What is the meaning? So, businesses or developers in SEZ or FTWZ can raise TC to buy both capital goods as well as non-capital goods from within the SEZ or between the SEZ and FTWZ. Yes or no? Among an SEZ, companies can take TC and other TC. Okay, I'll give you an example. SEZ, company A, company B. So these two can use the TC facility. Next is SEZ2, SEZ1, company C, company D. So company C can also take TC from company B, same vice versa. Okay, chalo. A company in one SEZ can borrow trade credit to buy equipment from another SEZ and pay later. Okay. Now TC for DTA purchases. A company in domestic. One second, people. Yes. A company in a domestic tariff area can use TC to buy capital and non-capital goods from SEZ, so that everyone will have a transaction with SEZ, because they know that if I purchase goods from SEZ, I will get a lot of TC. Yes or no, people? So three things we have understood. So people, a moment question is asked in your exam. Comment on trade credit. Write a short note on TC. What do you mean by SEZ, FTWZ, and DTA? You have to write all the points. Number one, you have to write the meaning. Number two is TC in SEZ and FTWZ. Now TC in DTA purchases, you have to write the answer. Okay. Now because of these rules, people, SEZ now are major suppliers to Indian industries. Allowing trade credit makes purchasing easier and production will boost. Very simple. Okay. Now you have to follow the SEZ compliance, SEZ Act 2005. Then date of ownership of transfer. The date of ownership transfer is not the physical delivery. It is the actual date on which the transaction had happened, not physical delivery. Physical delivery can happen after the actual transaction happened. Okay. Chalo people. Now no bill of entry for SEZ sales. Only you have to follow inter-unit receipt. Okay. For faster and quicker process. So people, we have understood TC. What are SEZ, FTWZ, DTA, TC in SEZ, FTWZ, then TC for DTA purchase we have understood. Then what are rules you have to follow if you are in SEZ? You have to follow the SEZ Act. Then we understood the meaning of ownership transfer. And last is no bill of entry for SEZ sales. Now people, one more small topic is remaining. See people, trade credit. See, US dollars, $150 million per import transaction. If it is oil, gas, airline shipping, just read, understand, learn it. Okay. US dollars, $50 million for all the imports. Tenure is, if it is capital goods, up to 3 years. If it is other goods, it is 1 year up to or operating cycle. Okay. That's all people. This is what I want to tell you. So people, we are done with the chapter. We are done with the key parameters, ECB and CRP, end users, limit and leverage, parking of ECB proceeds, refinancing, conversion, trade credits, and additional points. So people, very rarely questions have been asked with respect to ECB, but people always be prepared for the outcome. Okay. We don't know in this attempt question will be asked in exam or not, but I want every single one of my students should be thorough with the chapter that I have taught you, because people, we know the logic behind why the law has been made. Yes or no? We also have also understood the examples. Okay. And I've also made sure that my notes are very, very crispy, easy to read, understand, learn. Okay. Apart from that, people, what else do you need, people? Every single thing is given to you. So the reason why I want every single one of my students should cover all the topics is because, people, the regret of not studying the topic while you could study, and the same question if it is asked in the exam and if you lose marks, that regret is very, very painful, people. I don't want any one of my students should go through that regret. Okay. That is the reason why, people, I am so much obsessive about covering every single topic for you. Okay. So make sure that if I have given you the notes are crispy, easy to read, understand, learn. I've given a lot of examples. Whatever examples you feel it is required, you can just print my notes. You can write those examples while you are watching those lectures. Okay. Not necessarily that all the examples you have to write it down. Otherwise it's going to be a very, very messy thing. Okay. So that's all, people, from my side. If you have got any doubt with respect to any topic, just let me know all your doubts in the YouTube comment section, and I will make sure that all your doubts are resolved in the best possible manner. Okay. So thank you so much for watching, people. You have been an amazing audience, and eat well, sleep well, study well. I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care and bye bye.